Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, we're going to talk about, hey, I'm strong, but I'm not big. What's going on? Before I get into that topic, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. All right, so I actually pointed in the right direction. I'm with Faz. Faz Lifts. Faz has been on the channel before. Before we dive in, where can they find you on social media, Faz?
Right, you can find me on everything Faz Lifts. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube. I do have a podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes as well, and my website fazlifts.co.uk.
All right. So check out his YouTube when you can get the moment. All right. So we're going to talk about I'm strong, but I'm not big. There are guys out there that are building strength. Like they go on the internet and they get it. They get the message, progressive overload. They got the right exercises. They got a progression plan. They're doing the steps, Faz, but they're not strong. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. I want to start with this. When I was in college in 1986, I went off and they had this nice little small gym. And there was no information. There was just muscle mags. I just went in and kind of put together my own routine. And it was a lot of luck. Let me tell you, a lot of luck. But I didn't know anything about progression. There was no big articles on progression in Flex magazine. I just tried to improve by +1 over what I did last time. And in 18 months, Faz, I went, my bench got up to 275 by 5. My squat was 315 by 5. And all my other lifts fell into place there. So I went up a lot in strength, which sets us up for the first point I want to talk about, and that is you're not as strong as you think. Yes, you've been building strength, but you've not built enough strength to really have it transfer into a noticeable degree or a moderate degree of muscle mass. Can you touch on that, Faz?
Yeah, I think people should be commended for a reasonable level of strength increase. I did a video recently called Intermediate Strength Plateaus, and usually you see people run about a 2-plate side bench, 3-plate squat, 4-plate deadlifts, roughly those numbers or equivalents. And that's reasonably strong because it's certainly a lot stronger than the average guy on the street. So they would think, I'm stronger now. But actually, what we detailed in our last video together, where we looked at strength standards, those are really the entry-level points for being seen as the big guy in the gym and actually having the level of muscle to support that. So you're looking more like a 3-plate bench, 4-plate squat, 5-plate deadlift. And judging from the reaction that we got on the video that we did, a lot of people were actually quite surprised by those strength standards and thought they were really far out of reach. But that's really the beginnings of where you're going to look big. So just first of all, that strength standards, we've got to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page about the type of strength that we're talking about.
So, I've had the luxury, Faz, of working in the industry, and on any given day, I'd have a top level men's figure or men's figure, sorry, men's physique. That wasn't on purpose, folks. It wasn't a joke. Men's physique competitor or bodybuilder or Mr. North Carolina or whatever, YouTube celebrity walk in, and all the guys, you start to notice a trend, Faz. All the guys that are big are about as strong as I am. Like there was a lot of similarity. In my world, when I'm doing 130, 40, 50 pound dumbbell benches, these guys would walk in there like, oh, I'm not that strong, but they'd be matching me on strength. So the point here that needs to be understood is that the guys that are big in real life are pretty equivalent in as far as strength standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we start to see the shift. If you remember this, Steve, around about 2005, 2010, when a lot of strength guys were starting to get really lean. Do you remember the Dan Green kind of era? Right. And we were like, oh, wow, you know what? There are some lean guys out there who are lifting some big weight, and that's the kind of weight you need to lift to look really big. So yeah, like absolutely, got to get strong.
So just one final note on that point. We're not trying to, be a buzzkill for you guys. just know that if you went into the gym and you got your dumbbell benches up to 50s, 55, 60s, that's good progress. But the real meat and potatoes, the real mass, is probably going to come from moving them from the 60s to the 120s, 100s, 120s. So you basically just primed the engine. Now it's time to go.
Yeah, right.
So, Faz, we got a couple other points here, and we're going to change directions. And you had listed poor insertions. This is kind of polar opposite of what we were just talking about. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think guys can get a reasonable level of strength, but depending on their insertions and their genetic predisposition to the sport, like how they're built, how they're put together, they may or may not look big. Like my biceps are never going to actually look great because their insertions are awful. Triceps, on the other hand, massive, right?
Right.
And that's largely in part due to the insertions, where they insert, how big and full they look, regardless of what my body weight is. Bodybuilding really is in part a massive illusion. Like when I stepped on stage 3 years ago, I'm not the biggest guy. I stepped on stage at about 180 pounds at about 5'11", but I had a 28-inch waist, and alongside that, relatively large shoulders. So, like, it's an illusion. You need to, if you don't have the best insertions, you just got to carry on piling on the size, which is going to be difficult to do as a natural. So, bear in mind that even when you do get to your biggest, your insertions will play a big role in determining whether you actually visually look large.
So, just to touch on that, Faz, I have amazing tricep genetics, and I've worked them hard over the years. That's, I enjoy working my triceps, but they give the illusion that I have 20-inch arms, and it's not the case. They're literally like if I'm lean, they're barely 17 inches. But my biceps with my insertions, when I do the front bicep pose, there's nothing there. It looks like a deflated potato. If I have my arms resting at my side, I have a longer bicep, and it looks super impressive. So sometimes it can actually be the angle, but anytime I flex, my bicep is just nasty. It's Janet Jackson nasty. If you know
we're poor bicep brothers, right?
So I
mean, just one last example on that. I mean, I can just point to the size of my wrists. Very, very small wrists, and my forearms aren't massive, but they look very big relative to the wrist. So again, it's that illusion. It's all about the insertions.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I remember getting to college and measuring my wrist, and it was 6.3 inches. And I have smaller joints like that, and people find that hard to believe, but that's all part of my illusion. So that's a good point. So we touched on not that strong. We talked on insertions, cheating form, or like you go into the gym and just look at set quality, like overall set quality. One of my big pet peeves, and we're gonna talk about cheating form, but one of my pet peeves is people that don't control the weight. I've always controlled the weight. You do a lat pull down, and sometimes they're just like, like a lesson in speed. There's no control, the eccentric. And I'm not saying, Faz, you need to necessarily slow the eccentric, but have a reasonable degree of control over the weight. So let's touch on that, and let's touch on the point cheating form.
Yeah, I think the control point is a great one, but I'll go one step beyond that as well. I had a conversation with a young guy today, and he was talking about size and getting stronger. And I said to him, what are your numbers? And he said, well, I've done a 140 kilo squat for a double. And he did that with a spotter. So he's regularly handling about 80 kilos for 10. So that's like 180 pounds for 10. And he went up to 300 with a spotter. So he thinks he's quite strong because he did a 3-plate aside squat in his head. But the reality is the spotter was underneath him, lifting half the weight, and he only did a double with a belt and all that kind of stuff, knee sleeves and everything. So it's not actually that strong. It's not a true 300-pound squat. It's not even, and a 300-pound squat is not even in the realms of what we were talking about. So one, you've got to be strong. Reach those strength standards that we discussed in our last video. But two, you've got to hit those for actually decent form and in control, like Steve said. So Yeah, that's a big thing.
I would add to that, Faz, that you should be able to hit these numbers for volume. Like, the
Yes.
when we're talking about strength, you have to, like, we might be saying you need to get to a 3-plate bench, but what it really means is you need to get to 275 by 8 on bench. Uh, Muscle size is best built with overall volume, and there's such a fascination with low rep sets on the big lifts, and it's really a shame. They can have their place, but Faz, can you touch on that real quick?
Yeah.
What is the importance of overall training volume?
So I'm glad that we've had a chance to clarify this, because there were some questions on our strength standards video, and I absolutely mean exactly what Steve said, and we're on the same page with that. When I say 3-plate aside bench, what I really want you guys to be doing is hitting about 275, 250 for a good set of 10 to 12. That's the idea. So now, in terms of the volume, I am thinking for every body part, we should the guidelines are between sort of 12 to 20 sets. I think you've got to find your own actual volume and then start to hit that for volume. Hit that for the appropriate amount of volume. You've got to find your own threshold of what works for you. But certainly you should be breaching that threshold of between 10 to 12 plus sets up to a maximum of about 20. So what I don't want to see is people continuously testing their strength. I did a video on this as well called testing versus building strength. And I think doing an exercise for whatever weight for a good, say, 3 sets of 6 to 12, which is usual kind of bodybuilder range, is going to be worth a lot more than just working up to a theoretical double or single with your spotter holding on to the weight, even if you handled more weight, actually weight on the bar with that method. So I think you're going to get more growth from good, solid, crisp sets of 6 to 12 than you are from just more weight, which is for less reps and with a little bit of cheating involved. And I hope that message is loud and clear, because that's something that I see people go wrong with all the time.
Yeah, so the title of the video is Strong But Not Big. And the take home point here is that, you might be able to cheat rep a single or a double, but I don't care what your single or double is. I want to see what you're doing for reps. That's the real strength that's important here. And if you get that strength level up, you're going to see an increase in mass. Now, Faz, there's a point on here, in the middle of what we were talking about, and it's not one that you wrote down, but it's one that I thought about, and that is not all exercises are the best for you. So you can get strong on some exercises, but they might not be the best exercises for you. What do I mean by that? Well, the cult of barbell teaches us that thou must squat and deadlift and whatever. But what if the squat and deadlift aren't the best exercises for you for building muscle? What if you're able to roll out of the womb deadlifting 405 and it's easy for you, but it's not necessarily the best muscle builder? There's something to that, and there's something to trying to find the exercises that are good muscle builders. Can you touch on that, squat or Faz? Can you touch on, because that's kind of a maze. Somebody's going to say, well, how do I know what exercises are good for me?
Yeah, and I do hope that when people hear us speaking about the squat, bench, and deadlift, they don't think we exclusively mean those lifts, because we definitely don't. Neither of us are married to the barbell. So I'll give you an example from my first year of training. I wasn't a very good bencher naturally, and so I moved to the weighted dip. Someone asked me in my comments whether a dip would be a good substitute. The old-time guys, the old-time strong guys like Pat Casey, one of the strongest teens in America back in the 60s, one of the first guys to bench press 500 pounds, he almost exclusively used the weighted dip and the incline dumbbell bench to build up his bench press to 500 pounds, to build up his chest and delt power. So yeah, if you're not suited to an exercise, don't force yourself to do it. So my main movements in my first year of training were the seated press, the weighted chin, the weighted dip, and the partial deadlift and the squat. And those were great for me. And when I had built enough muscle mass, I was able to do the rest of the lifts pretty well as well. But for a lot of you guys, you may not be suited to these lifts. Don't struggle with them if you're not built to do them. Pick something which you're able to do comfortably and you can progress on. That's the whole idea. As long as it's a nice compound exercise which is suited to your body type and you can load weight safely, it's great. Go nuts.
One of the issues that you run into is if you get married to only a limited number of movement patterns, is that um, you can't really learn. So the take home point with this is not all exercises are the best for muscle growth. What does that mean for me? It means try multiple big hitters, try incline dumbbell bench, try dips, try barbell bench press. Have some in the mix. What I used to do, Faz, in my meat and potato years is I would have four big variations for each major muscle group, and I would do two one week, and I would do two the next. So I had four big items on the menu, and I would rotate. And while doing that, you're not just married to the squat. You might have squat, leg press, hack squat, and whatever. And that will not only help you with hypertrophy, but it'll also help you learn which kind of exercises feel better for you. Any thoughts on that?
You know what? I'm smiling because it reminds me of my first few years as well. So I started off with those lifts, like I said, the partial deadlift and the squat, and for my lower body. And eventually I wanted to build in the leg press because I felt like I needed more quad. And so I built that in as a variation. And I also built in the front squat as a variation. So I started with a base of movements that I was suited to, and they built some initial level of muscle mass. And because I actually had some meat on my bones, I was then better able to do other exercises which I hadn't been suited to up until that point. Eventually, because I did weighted dips so much and built up my chest and my triceps, I actually became half decent at the bench press too. So in the early stages, when you're building that initial level of strength, definitely go for the exercises you're most suited to. And then, like Steve and I, coincidentally, we didn't rehearse this, by the way. We've both sort of said that over time you can build in other exercises which you may not have previously been suited to and add them into your rotation and carry on building strength, different movement patterns, which is going to be good for your overall level of development. I found that the dip was always the movement I came back to build my bench press, and vice versa.
So Faz, one final point on a very common starting point, and then we can jump ship on this video, is people will start with the programs are kind of spoon-fed, the minimal type of programs, barbell-centric, and there's a lot of good pieces to that puzzle. But if you start with the squat and the deadlift, and these are exercises that require some time to master. And what I mean by that is to get to a reasonable degree where they start actually being effective for your body. As a coach, I can tell you 80% of people that come to me that have been squatting for years really haven't been getting a lot out of it because their form is so bad. So if you're just married to that limited number of exercises and you're doing the strong lifts, and I tell you, don't do the strong lifts, try something different. You're doing a limited number of exercises that might take a lot of time to fully get something out of them, and you might be increasing your strength along the way, but you're probably not getting a lot of mass out of it.
So I'll give you guys an analogy on this. So here's a diet analogy that I've just thought of. So when you are initially on your, let's say your first shred, okay, you've come from being overweight to your first shred, the base of your diet at that stage is going to be foods which agree with you and give you the baseline of protein and nutrients and fiber and all kinds of things that you need to maintain your muscle mass, and also which are good for your health and allow you to reduce your body fat. Now, that's the base is kind of like the base of exercises which you're well suited to. And if I was to go back to my example, it would be the dips, the chins, the overhead presses, that kind of stuff, right? Now, as you then progress on and you go back to maintenance and perhaps bulking, you add in other certain foods which you potentially weren't really able to have before because they were either too calorific or they made you eat more or they're very moreish, blah, blah, blah. But you were able to add them in now because you have built a base of food choices which are suited to you and you can have on a day in, day out basis. Like I'm very fond of vegetables. I'm very fond of potatoes. I'm very fond of chickpeas and lentils and stuff like that, right? That's my thing. I'm also very fond of pork. That's my thing. Now, when I'm looking to bulk, I will keep all those foods in and I will add other foods on top. And it's kind of like the analogy with training. In your first year, you're going to find that base of exercises which can build your body and are suited to your body type. Keep them as a base and add in layers on top of that to build your strength and your movement patterns from different ways to fill in all the gaps of muscle. And that's when you can potentially look into other things like isolation exercises and various other things which you might not have considered fresh into the gym.
Thanks, Faz. And a couple things before we hop off. Number one, admiring the vein in your arms. You got to be pretty lean right now. Number two, Faz, is that a Gymshark shirt?
It's a very old one. I've actually got it's a hole in it.
just checking, Faz. Number three,
I'm waiting for the sponsorship.
Yeah, no, Faz has got a new ebook out. So where can they find that?
Yeah, so I've got a new ebook. It's if you go onto my channel, please do subscribe to my YouTube because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So that'd be great. The YouTube will be linked down below. If you go onto that and on the latest video, just click on that. It's in the description. There'll be a link for you to purchase that ebook for a small nominal fee. I'd love for you guys to give it a try. Tag me in on @FazLifts on Instagram, or just write to me on YouTube and let me know how you're getting on with the program. But it's the exact start of the routine that I used to peak my powerlifting days like 10 years ago when I was at my absolute strongest. So I would love for you guys to try it out and see what you think.
One final note, Faz, are you going to the Arnold UK?
You know what? I've thought about it. Yes, because it's about an hour from me. So it's not too far either. So I've got a couple of friends who might want to go, and assuming we stay open, then I think I might check out. I've never actually been, so I'd love to.
Well, if you do go, just let the folks know on the channel so they can stalk you at the Arnold UK. All right, guys. Yeah. Thanks, Faz. So, guys, hope this video has been of some help. If you guys have any questions or comments, drop them down below. If you made it this far in this video and have yet to subscribe to my channel, please do. I'd appreciate the support. So, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Thanks, Faz.
Take care, guys.